I now call upon Andrea Kremer to deliver remarks.
Congratulations! Let me have some energy here. Come on, congratulations. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Kudos to all of our honorary degree recipients, Dr. Wesley, Dr. Walsh. It is my privilege, very humbling privilege, to represent the three of us with these few words. Also, thank you to the board and President Elmore for this honor as your commencement speaker. As he mentioned, I have achieved many firsts in my career of journalism, but in the academic realm, this is a true first for me, and I'm very humbled by this honor. Plus, they make robes in child sizes, so I'm really happy about that. I would like to take a moment to echo something I think that Rico pointed out, which is that President Elmore, to me, is one of the most inspirational, innovative, and dedicated people that I've ever come across. And having him at the helm of Dean is an incredible opportunity for this college. That's the way you wrote it, right? You wrote it that way, right? Look, my goal here is to be the kind of commencement speaker that leaves you with some thought-provoking ideas, whether they resonate now or down the road. Ah, that's what Andrea meant. I hope that you will think about that one day. And look, there's a lot of pressure. But as Billie Jean King famously said, and is constantly in my head, pressure is a privilege. So a year ago, I sat in the audience of all of you folks back there as my son graduated college. So I understand firsthand the pride that goes into watching your child achieve this milestone. So to some of the students, did you do any of the homework that I mentioned? I don't know if you remember, but I asked you to think about the people most meaningful on your path to this day. In sports, you hear players talk about representing the name on the back of their jerseys. Well, you all are representing the names on your degree. Today is about celebrating the journey that you've experienced with those most important in your lives, your village, so to speak. Remember Hillary Clinton used to talk about it takes a village? So it could be family members, a teacher, a mentor, a close friend. But can we have a huge round of applause for all the villagers? Come on, graduates. Now look, I don't want to just mouth a bunch of platitudes to you. I'd like to share a couple of personal stories because I walk the walk and I talk the talk. Now, not every graduate here, again, as Rico alluded to, not every graduate sitting right here may know what they're going to do when you grow up. And while that may feel scary and uncertain, it's okay. It's okay to not graduate. It's okay to graduate and not know with any certainty what you want the rest of your life to look like. And that's easy for me to say, right? Well, consider this. When I was growing up, I did not exist. Oh, okay, what the heck does she mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is very simple. I couldn't turn on the TV and say, oh, I want to do what she's doing, because I didn't exist. Then when I was in your shoes graduating college, the primary women that were doing sports on TV were former beauty queens. And I can honestly say I would not be included in that category, and that's okay. Well, what if you don't have that career vision? When I sat where you are graduating college, the possibility of me doing what I'm doing right now and have been doing for close to 40 years was unthinkable. It was unimaginable. Mayor Walsh, and you're always going to be Mayor Walsh because it's like Coach, you just always have to call him that. Mayor Walsh mentioned this just briefly to the graduates a little bit earlier this morning, which is that who would have thought that he would be where he is? Well, I understand that very, very well. I would never have thought when I sat in your shoes that I am where I am. I had danced ballet with several companies throughout high school and college, and I love sports. But I mean, I couldn't really make a career out of either one of those, could I? I had actually been told my entire life, you're gonna make a great lawyer. It was just a given that I was gonna go to law school. So, upon graduation, I went to law school. And I hated it. Sorry, President Elmore. Lots of people hate the first year of law school. I hated my life. I didn't like my life. So I took a leave of absence. My parents were frantic. My dad said, you never have to practice a day in your life, but you're always going to have that degree. But I knew what I didn't want. Now it was about finding what I did. It was the first big decision that I made about my own life. So I started dancing ballet with companies in New York, and then ultimately I moved back to Philadelphia, where I'm from. And I'd always been a good writer. So I started doing some freelance writing for a newspaper in suburban Philadelphia, and I was doing dance and theater reviews because I was a dancer. That's what I knew. But I made sure to tell the managing editor that I love sports. So every now and then they'd throw me a little bone and I would do a sports story. Well, after about 6 months, I was offered the job as sports editor. But the managing editor was very clear. This was a 24/7 job. No more dancing. So I cut off my hair, put away my point shoes, and stopped dancing cold turkey. And I launched my career in sports journalism, which took off like a rocket, and I've never looked back. Some doors started to open, and I kicked the rest of them down. I maximized being in the right place at the right time for career choices that I made, and guess what? So can you. Lesson learned. Sometimes you find out what you want to do by seeing what you don't want to do. Law school wasn't for me, and I didn't want to take up a spot if someone really wanted to be there, and that wasn't me. Lesson learned. Don't succumb to others' expectations. I adored my parents, but it was my life to live, not theirs. And they became my biggest and most proud supporters when my career launched and I broke into television. Lesson learned. Self-advocate. Don't expect others to know what interests you and what you want to do. No one feels as strongly as you do. Make it clear. If my managing editor didn't know that I liked sports and I wanted to do more than just write dance and theater reviews, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity. I self-advocated. Lesson learned. Pursue your passion. Ding, ding, ding. That's the key. Sports was my passion, but it never occurred to me that I could make a career out of it. I couldn't see it, so I didn't think I could be it. But I went on to become the first female producer, director, writer, editor at NFL Films, and then ESPN's first female correspondent, and then, ultimately, the first full-time female NFL game analyst for Prime Video on Thursday Night Football. I felt passionately about sports. Thank you. I felt passionately about sports, storytelling, and journalism. The average person spends 90,000 hours of their life at work. If you feel passionately about what you're doing, and let me define passion, a strong liking or desire or devotion to some activity, object, or concept. I believe your life will take on new and important meaning, and your feelings of self-worth will dominate. But you know why else this is important? People don't mean to be inherently negative, but they often are. I remember I was at the end of my pregnancy, and I was asked, how are you still going to work? How are you still going to travel and report? And I said, you know what? My gosh, you're right. I'm going to be the first working mother on the face of this earth. I mean, come on now. We all hear that negative loop, but it's up to each of us to break through it, and that takes strength, perseverance, and confidence. You have to put the blinders on. You're going to be told no, and you may feel you're not good enough. And guess what? I've been right there. Earlier in my career, at one of the networks I was working for, there was a job I really wanted, hosting an interview show. And I was the backup. And as we know in sports, the backup is key. You always hear quarterback's the most important player on your team, backup's the second most important player. I was the backup for this show. And I really wanted to be the host because the longtime host was leaving. So I met with my then boss at the time, who was not involved in the decision, but he was my mentor, and he said, listen, I'm just going to be upfront with you. They're not going to put a woman in that role. They're not going to hire a woman. And I remember feeling equal parts anger, frustration. I wasn't going to cry, though. But I remember that feeling so strongly. So they hired a man. Then they fired him. Then they hired another man. Then they replaced that man with a third man. Then they canceled the show, rather than giving me, a woman who deserved the shot, a chance. But I didn't let it break me. I put the blinders on. I didn't harbor anger and resentment. But I kind of remember it to this day, don't I? And I excelled at whatever I was doing at the time. Lesson learned. It's not about getting knocked down. It's how you get yourself off the mat even stronger and more resilient. Hard work and perseverance. I outworked everyone and prepared obsessively. Preparation leads to confidence in whatever you do. You could be preparing for a TV interview, a job interview, calling a game. Preparation is your armor, and I was armed. They could cancel that show, but they could never cancel me, because I ended up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I get asked a lot, it's kind of a cliche question, what advice would you give your younger self? Well, I can't do that, but I can offer this up for you to consider. Enjoy the journey. For years, for me, it was all about what's next. I mean, come on, you're only as good as your next story, your next news-breaking event, your next game, your next story, your next interview. And then came for me the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, working for NBC, covering swimming. As Bob Costas so eloquently said, all Michael Phelps does is eat, sleep, swim, and talk to Andrea. So I woke up the morning that Michael Phelps was going to do something that I'm not sure we'll ever see in our life again, and that's winning 8 gold medals. And I woke up that morning and I said, wow, I'm going to be this eensy-weensy bit of history today, because he's going to get out of the pool, he's going to come right to me. Take it in. I never took anything in. So I got to the pool, didn't affect my professionalism, my preparation, but I took it all in. I wanted to experience that moment. And when he won, I did. I can report back to you, mission accomplished for myself. For Michael too, but I'm talking about for my experience at this point. And then 6 months later, I was on the sidelines of one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time, Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Arizona Cardinals, little tiptoe catch by Santonio Holmes in the corner of the end zone. And again, I stood on the 50-yard line and I took that moment in before the game began. I took that in. Lesson learned. Please allow yourself to enjoy the moment and realize how special it is. The other thing I want you to consider is what many people call soft skills. But I think they may be the most important, and really they're not that hard to do. The way you treat others. Common courtesy. Being a good person and a good teammate matters more than ever. People want to work with who they want to work with. That Super Bowl that I mentioned, I'm on the sidelines, and they had another sideline reporter that they added just for that game. Another woman. She was younger than me, prettier than me, blonder than me, if that's possible. And yes, indeed, she actually had more experience on the sidelines than I did. You know what I did? Called her up. What can I do to help you? What can I do? You haven't worked with this crew before. Let me tell you a couple of things here. What can I do? Because everybody's insecure. But you have to understand that you need to help other people, even if one day they may end up replacing you. And that woman is my friend to this day and talks about how I could have been dismissive of her, but I didn't. I was accepting. Think about the way you treat people. It's so hugely important. So in closing, I read a thought-provoking article recently in the New York Times about Finland, which for 6 straight years has been ranked the happiest country in the world. The Finnish way is summed up by the word sisu. It's a uniquely Finnish concept, and it loosely translates into English as, quote, perseverance, determination, strength of will, and acting rationally in the face of adversity. It's a measure of integrity, the philosophy that what must be done will be done, regardless of cost, almost a grim drive. The second happiest country in the world is Denmark. The defining character of Danish culture is hyggelig, which means a quality of coziness and comfort which engenders a feeling of well-being. So the 2 happiest countries in the world have very different sensibilities about how to obtain it and what it means to be happy and see your place in the world. Lesson learned, happiness comes in many different forms, different configurations. And as you go through life, you have to figure out your sisu, or your hyggelig. I hope that school has prepared you to find what happiness means for you, and that you'll know it when you see it. But these core tenets, these philosophies, they aren't mutually exclusive. You can have both, a steadfastness and a cozy, nice life as well. Someone recently wrote that the graduation ceremony is a symbolic finish line. I prefer to think of it as a starting line. So graduates, start your engines. I wish you good luck, great health, and above all, many lessons learned on your journey. Enjoy. Thanks for the time and attention. Congratulations.